My name's Steve Brand and I make beer. People realized that I would be drinking some of these beers and I got a gift that showed me how to do it. And as time progressed, I became more and more efficient at doing that and getting into the hobby deeper and deeper. I enjoyed going to some of the establishments that had specialty beers, especially the German lagers and some of the German Hefeweizens and those types of beers. Some of the types of beers I make, well, I said a couple of them. I do make Hefeweizens. I've made a number of them, and I'm not going to remember them all, but I've made a Hefeweizen. I've made lagers. I've made Canadian ales. I've made pale ales. So you could pretty much run the gamut. I haven't made a Pilsner. There are some types of those beers that take a little bit extra in storing in certain degrees, and so I haven't gone into that depth. But and some of those other beers that I've just mentioned, I do like to make them. My favorite beer that I've made, I think it's been Marzen. I do like the Oktoberfest. It's not too hoppy, and it's a fairly smooth drinking beer, but it does have some flavor. It's not like drinking one of your domestic lager beers. It has a little bit more taste than that. For a true beer, there are only 4 ingredients that you're supposed to use. There are some countries in the world that even have laws that said you cannot call it beer unless you have those 4 ingredients. So those ingredients are water, a grain, a hop, and then the yeast. The tools that you need to start making the beer is you need to have something to ferment the beer in. It needs to be sealable. You also have to have an airtight seal, but there are gases that when you're making the beer, yeast will give off a carbon dioxide gas, and if you have it completely sealed, the container would expand and it would pop the lid off, or if you had something too tight, it could blow it up. So what you have to have is an airtight seal. It's a valve, and it's basically just water, and it's pretty slick. You just plug it into the top. Air pressure will let it bubble out, but air will not flow back in. You also need something called a carboy. I switched it over to a carboy because usually the fermenting container is a stainless steel or a plastic. I have a plastic, and the glass doesn't pick up any of the flavors. You also need something to measure the specific gravity, which will tell you when it's ready to can or a bottle in this case, and how much alcohol it has into it. Water's heavier than alcohol, so the more it ferments and the more alcohol you get into it, you can actually see it will start floating more. You can buy kits. You have to get the equipment, so they'll set you up if you go to somebody that sells those kits, and then you buy some equipment and goodbye.